Oi, eu sou Miguel Dornelles, eu estou aqui com a Vanessa Fox, da 9by Blue. Ela que é uma referência no mercado de SEO, no mundo de SEO, sabe muito sobre isso e a gente vai bater um papo agora com ela. Vanessa, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
First thing, what is the best way to go about search if you're starting out with that, considering that Brazil is like 3 years or something around that, behind the US in terms of maturity in the market?
Okay, sure. I think the good thing is that the fundamentals of search pretty much stay the same. So I think anything that's going on now, anyone here can easily just dive right into, which is great. I think there's a couple of things if you're first starting out. I think the most important thing is to figure out what your goals are, rather than just sort of start in with the tactics. It's good to figure out what your overall strategy is, what your goals are. I think the primary thing to think about is that everyone searches now, and so it really is a great way to engage with an audience. And so figuring out who is the audience you're trying to target and what is it that you want to do with that audience once you get them. Because I think the first mistake a lot of people make when they're getting into search is that they really spend a lot of time thinking about ranking well, but then not what they're going to do with those visitors once they get them to their site. So I think having that overall strategy for all the different steps in advance is really kind of the key to success.
Well, going deeper into that path of search engine optimization,
yeah.
Gabriel Novaes, who was reading us, he asked about subdomains versus SERP domination, and what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I saw this discussion. So there's a couple of things that are going on here. One is that the search engines, particularly with Google, which here in Brazil they have almost 90% market share, so it probably makes sense to mostly focus on Google. And they're the ones, of course, that I know the most about, having spent time working in Google search. Google wants to show a variety of results to searchers. They don't want you to do a search and then get basically 10 results that are exactly the same. They want to make sure that they're offering you a wide variety of things. So that not only means showing multiple sites, but it also means showing multiple types of sites, right? So they might show a research site, a commerce site. They want to give you a lot of options. So they have this thing called host crowding, which is where when they get the results back, they would be showing multiple results from the same site. They'll only pick a couple of those results and they won't show the rest. And so that sort of keeps one, say, site or company from dominating the results. But there is an exception, and that's what was being discussed here, which is that in particular, if someone does a search for a brand, then Google's going to say, okay, the intent of the searcher is really specifically for that brand. So in this case, if we show them a variety of results, it's actually going to give them a bad experience, because they don't want all this variety of results. They want results specific to this brand.
And so it makes sense.
So it makes sense. And so someone actually gave the example, which is the example I use all the time, which is Google. If you do a search for Google, you see all the subdomains for Google, right? You see maps, analytics, you see like all these Google subdomains. So it's not an issue that if you use a lot of subdomains, you might get like a penalty, which is what some people were worried about. Oh, is this going to cause us to, the search engines not to like us? Because Google, they do that themselves. And so that's where it makes sense, is when you're specifically searching for a brand. The one thing that I would caution people on is that what some people try to sort of manipulate things a little by doing a lot of subdomains that say just have a single page with no content. They just have this idea that, we'll just build a bunch of pages each on a subdomain. That's not really going to work. It really only makes sense to have a subdomain if you have substantial content around that subdomain. And so that's, I think, where the risk might lie. But yeah, that's I think was kind of what was happening in that discussion.
The other question, we're in a more technical side of SEO, which is great to be talking about.
Yeah.
People also asked us about Ajax being accessible to Google's engine right now. How do you see that considering that a lot of websites use that technology, and they did have a big problem until recently.
Yeah. So the primary problem there, right, is that historically the search engines have been just text-based search engines, right? And so they extract the text from a page really just from straight HTML. So anything that goes beyond that, whether it's Ajax or Flash, video, images, anything beyond just the text on a page has been problematic for search engines to extract. And so with Ajax, there's been a couple of problems along those lines. One is that since it's a JavaScript-based code, the search engines had problems getting in to the JavaScript just to extract the text. But the bigger issue has been that with Ajax specifically, the URLs often have a hash mark in them. And if you think about the early days of the web, the hash mark was used as an anchor within a page, right? So you'd have one page and then you might have a couple headings, right? And so if you saw the hash mark, it just meant, oh, jump down to a later part of this page. And so because of that, the search engines, anytime they encounter the hash mark, they don't index any part of the URL after that, because they're like, oh, I'll just be indexing the same page over and over again. And so you had all these Ajax URLs that had all these hash marks in them, and so the search engines were dropping off all the ends of those URLs.
I have another question from Cassiano Travarelli. He asked, how do you see the growth of social media and that related to Google's social search, and the influence of that in the search engine result pages?
It's an interesting question, because with Google in particular, they are really being aggressive right now, I think, in trying to figure out how to integrate social into search. It's become a really large push for them. They certainly have Buzz out now, where they're trying to get all of the real-time stuff that's out there, and they've actually started to index Buzz in search results as part of that. Social search in particular, what they've done is they have results generally at the bottom right now of the search results page, which is where they tend to put things when they're experimenting with them, which is results from your social circle. And so what they started with was profiles, right? They tried to get everyone to build a Google profile, because as part of that you could list all of the social networks that you were part of, and that has enabled them to understand more of your social graph. And so historically, right, there's always been this link graph where they've been able to tell the links going in to pages, and that's how they've figured out page rank. And so it looks like they're trying to do a similar thing with your social graph, right, which is based on the connections you have with people and the connections they have with people. They're trying to figure out what's important to you, because it's all part of this larger idea of personalization, right? They want to use as much information about you as possible so that your results are exactly what you're looking for. And they're doing this in lots of ways beyond just social circles, right? They're doing it with, what are the pages that you navigate to? What are the search results that you click on? What are the searches that you've done before? I mean, they're trying to use as much data as they can. So, this social information is just one of those pieces. But I think in terms of how it's impacting the search results, beyond just the fact that it means everyone's search results are different, is that Google is trying to grab as much of this social content as possible. So if you have a site that you enable, your users to upload their own content, that all might be added into this social circle results. So in a way, it's another source of universal content, right?
Thank you, Vanessa, for being here, and
I'm
sure that the community, the SEO community, is going to be very glad that we discussed these topics, and we hope to see you very soon in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.